Welcome back to another episode of Grizzly True Crime. My name is Gisela K, and today we continue to look at the Delphi case, and we continue to process the fact that they've now caught Bridge Guy. We've looked at Bridge Guy and him walking for that second or two for so long and hearing guys down the hill that it's actually unbelievable still to think that 5 years and 8 months later, they caught the guy.
Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill. Guys. Down the hill.
This is the guy, Richard Allen, who lived in Delphi, as they suspected he would. I mean, he does fit the profile, right? He also does fit the profile for a potential serial killer, right? So I'm hoping with them still keeping the tip lines open that many more people will come forward now that they have a face and a name, and they'll be like, wait a minute, I've come across that guy before. I've experienced him before, or he did this, or they know that. Whatever it is, let's hope we find out a little more about his background, because all that we know is he got married when he was 19 years old. He has been living in Delphi in that home since around 2006. He has a wife, one daughter, works at the CVS, is described as one of the nicest guys. I mean, he also helped Becky Patty, Mike Patty, and Tara German process some photos, even print out some sketches at no charge. The sketches of the Delphi suspect were on the window at the CVS. They were everywhere in Delphi. I mean, he's just minutes away from Monon High Bridge, right across from the Delphi Community High School, right across from the Methodist Church where they had the press conference yesterday. He's literally right there in the small community of 3,000 people. How exactly they caught him, of course, we don't know because the probable cause has been sealed, but it's going to be very interesting. You know, I wonder, I've seen some rumors that it was by chance that he stole a neighbor's tools and then the neighbor reported it and the police were able to go in and have a look. And when they did, they uncovered so much more than they thought. However, when we listen in a moment to the HLN special clip of exactly what they brought out of the house from what they could observe, right? It sounds very specific, like very specific areas were searched and targeted with a metal detector and all kinds of equipment. So it's going to be so interesting to learn, what did they find in his shed, in his flower bed, in his backyard? What was it really? And how did they actually get that search warrant to dig up this guy's backyard, basically, and put him behind bars? I think it's going to be an incredible story. Could be by chance, could be that someone was a snitch, and if there's a snitch, we know who that could be, right? Meaning it could be Kegan Kline. Maybe he had some kind of digital connection or something like that. I would still, as much as I absolutely hate saying it, I still think there's a possibility that the motive would be something like snuff films, because that is something that's, you know, part of the dark web, and it's, unfortunately, there is a whole audience for that, and it's disgusting and terrible. I just wonder if any of the digital evidence recovered from Kegan Kline's phones and things like that, if there is any connection to at least the digital evidence shared from someone like this and that whole ring of people. So, anyway, let me stop rambling and let's get into this. So this I showed in my live stream yesterday. If you missed it, go check it out. I've also uploaded for you a sniffle-free press conference, which is where I literally manually removed every time that Doug Carter sniffed. We don't throw shade at him for doing it. He was emotional. He was sweating a lot and he was sniffing, yes. But it is a little distracting to listen to his portion of the press conference with all the sniffles. So I made sure to upload a version for you where you can listen to it without any sniffles. I hope you like that. It's ad-free. So is the Delphi case file. So go check it out. You can watch it at your leisure as well, just to reflect back on other press conferences. So check that out. But for today, in this episode, I just wanted to show you again that they say police confirmed on Sunday that Richard Allen is not cooperating with their investigation into the murders after being taken into jail. Okay, so here they say the original story below, which we did yesterday in the live stream. So the main point here is he's not cooperating. One wouldn't really expect him to. I think this would be a shock to him as well, right? Being caught after all this time, being complacent, being comfortable, posing with a sketch right behind him in a bar, which his wife then put on social media. I'm pretty sure he's going to feel some anger towards her, which I'm glad he's behind bars so that she's also safe, right? Because he would feel some anger that all this stuff was on social media and everyone can now kind of pass his pictures around and see things in hindsight and all that, which, yeah, is very fascinating to see that he was literally there as part of the community, being the nice guy, as they always are. I told you, for me, a red flag is a really nice guy. It's a red flag, especially when they try very hard to be a very nice guy, right? Or show the world what a saint they are. That's a red flag. So, to think that this guy, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought for a second here, because I'm just like, what? I don't know if you guys feel like that, but I'm still processing that this guy lived there, was in the community, that the resentment might be there now for his wife putting all these pictures out. We can all see it now. We can see his face. Anyway, so he's not cooperating. He's pleading not guilty. Of course, most of them do. I think the only one I've seen plead guilty recently is Ethan Crumbly. So let's not get into that case now, but that was at least like, finally, someone's saying guilty. So anyway, let's move on to look at the HLN clip. There's an HLN special. If you didn't know, I'm going to link it below so you can check out the whole thing yourself. Doug Carter speaks on there. We're going to look quickly at a neighbor's statement from there, and then we'll look at the portion where they talk about what they brought out of the home in a 12-hour search while Richard Allen and his wife were standing outside of the house. But that's also, do they have to stay there? Is a question that I have when there's like a search warrant being executed or they're digging up your backyard. Or is he just feeling, that he nervous and like controlling, that he has to stand there and just wait for them? I don't think he anticipated it would take 12 hours, right? Standing outside for 12 hours is quite a while, huh? If you think about it. Damn. Okay, so let's look at what the neighbor said, because even that is like, what? Okay, so this is from timestamp 22 minutes and 17 seconds. Check out what this neighbor said.
To talk to folks around town, and so we talked to Cynthia Rossi, who we've talked to her throughout the podcast. Denise. And Denise, and Denise's daughter Cynthia was friends with Abby and Libby, and she talked about kind of learning about this arrest. Here's what she had to say.
When I started to piece together and I saw his picture, and I had just talked to him a week before, I felt disgusted. I thought I was going to throw up. It was horrifying. And how close he lives to my house. All his neighbors that are good friends of mine. He was a dog.
Like, damn, the community is so tight-knit. And for everyone saying, why didn't his wife see it was him? Why didn't his daughter? Why didn't the community? For 5 years and 8 months, so over 5.5 years, almost 6, why did no one suspect it? Well, firstly, the sketches could look like anyone. We've seen persons of interest in the past, and the sketch looks just like them. So as Doug Carter said, a sketch is not a photo, right? So it's not the most accurate thing. We've never seen it be too accurate in the past either. If you look at the sketches of Richard Ramirez, the Zodiac killer, and all these serial killers that they were looking for, it's just like, wow, the sketches are not generally that accurate. But then also that little clip we got of Bridge Guy, I mean, for me still, I'm processing like, damn, that's not at all how I expected him to look, because of the distortion on the face and just the way he's walking and everything. It's really hard to see, So this must be such a shock for the community. Oh my word, neighbors. And listen to what else she says here.
Dog sitter for one of my good friends. They had no idea. There's like a handful of stores in Delphi. He works at CVS. Everybody goes to CVS.
There's a handful of stores in Delphi, one pharmacy, and he works at that pharmacy. Like literally in a place where people are going to come there, to buy a whole bunch of stuff. There's all sorts of things available there. But if they've got a cold or flu or they need medication or whatever, they're going to come there. Meaning, I just mean it's like a vulnerable caring place. You know what I mean? Like, and he's there, shift supervisor. Yes, he's got a pharmacy technician license, but apparently he was a shift supervisor. He wasn't a pharmaceutical technician. He was mostly operating as a shift supervisor. So that, and just like welcoming people to the store, and like, oh man, to think of that, the sketches being right there on the window. I mean, of course, he wouldn't be able to just rip them down or act in any way that would draw suspicion to him. So, you know what? I hate saying this, but he did really well of keeping a low profile for a long time, huh? I mean, many killers and or serial killers do. They're really good at just hiding in plain sight. What I find really hard to believe is that this dude murdered 2 girls when he was 44 years old. I want to know more about his background. What did he do before that? What behavior? There must be a lot. There must really be a lot to escalate to that level. Has he killed other people? You know, we need to look into other missing persons, other unsolved homicides like the Evansdale murders, the Flora fire, all of that. You just don't wake up when you're 44 years old and then be like, okay, I'm just suddenly going to murder two teenagers, a 13 and a 14-year-old, in the most brutal way. According to everything that we've heard from law enforcement, it sounded very brutal. Also, I found it interesting in listening to Doug Carter's post-press conference interview, how the reporter asked him, are you still looking into Ron Logan? He said no one's been cleared. They're literally going to start over, which is what he said all along. Now that they have the guy, they got to go back and look at all the tips they received, which he said was like 70,000 tips, and go over everything to see if there's any really good Richard Allen info in there. You know, was there ever a tip for this guy? Does anyone know more? And of course, more tips are going to come in because I'm pretty sure he's done some shady things before 2017. You know, and if this would be a, you know, cool off period or him just keeping a low profile, what is he really doing digitally then to satisfy that urge, that need, whatever is driving him? I think it would be very interesting. At timestamp 3109 on the HLN special, I believe this is footage from inside that CVS where he worked. We don't have a CVS in the Netherlands, but you guys in the States, does it all look like this? Pretty much like, right? It pretty much all looks like this. I've been in a CVS before in America. We here have a store called Kruidvat, and they pretty much all look the same with minor differences. But like, damn, this is where he was working. Now, let's see what on earth they dug up from that backyard.
That's right, Susan. I was able to speak with some of the neighbors of Richard Allen. They've lived near him for several years. They were familiar with him but didn't know him well. But on Thursday, October 13th, they noticed a lot of activity outside.
Notice the date, Thursday, October 13th. So that's when they searched the house. I hadn't known quite the date before. I know they said mid-October or towards the time he was arrested. But Thursday, October 13th is when they searched the house. This is Barbara McDonald from the Down the Hill podcast. If you haven't listened to the podcast yet, it's very good. I've recommended it before. It's on my Delphi playlist as well. We went over some of the details from some of those episodes. So check that out.
At his house, a lot of cars that appeared to them to be unmarked law enforcement vehicles, a lot of men not in law enforcement uniforms, but in suits and khaki pants, all arriving at the house just before noon. They asked Richard and his wife to exit the home and to remain outside of the home throughout the day. They weren't allowed back into the home until around 11 p.m. that night. During that time, Richard stood outside. His wife sat in a van. He stood outside that van for several hours.
So they're highlighting the portion where you could see the little circle on the screen there. That would be Richard Allen chilling outside of his car while the police are searching his backyard. That must have been a really stressful time for him, huh? Oh, damn. Imagine just having to wait there knowing they're about to uncover a lot of your darkest secrets, because we're going to hear now, but they searched the flower bed, the shed. Now, what on earth was he doing in that shed? They brought out a shoebox and a Macy's bag. Like, what did he have in there? I really think a lot of this would have a lot of digital evidence. And I would assume that someone like this, because 2 articles of clothing were missing from one victim in the Delphi murders here. And I wonder what that would be. And if that was found in the flower bed, in, you know, the shoebox, in a trophy box, in the shed, and they recovered lots of books and things as well. So you just don't know what kind of collection this guy had going on and how many more victims there could be. We're yet to see.
One of the photos shows that we've exclusively obtained. Another photo shows him sitting in the van with his wife with the passenger door open for another several hours. At some point, as it was starting to get dark out, these neighbors noticed that the Carroll County Sheriff's Chief Deputy Tony Liggett arrived. He had a piece of paper with him. He showed it to Richard Allen, and at that point, a tow truck arrived and
I wonder if that would be, of course, an official search warrant. I mean, I wonder what led investigators there. Would it be DNA? Is it genealogy? Is it Were they digging through the trash and matching his DNA that way? Or is it the story that's going around of him stealing tools from a neighbor's yard? That's so weird that he did that. Or from a neighbor's garage. The neighbor reports it. They go look for the tools. Then they find all this other stuff. Then the search warrant comes. Is it that? Did his mom tip the police off? Because that's another rumor. Did his wife tip the police off? Because that's another rumor. We're yet to find out. I'm not 100% sure. A lot of people that have legal experience are telling me not to get my hopes up that the trial will be in March, because they've said the pre-trial is in January and then the trial starts in March, I believe the 20th. And they're like, no, don't get your hopes up for that. It's going to be a long time till the trial, which is what we see ordinarily in many cases. Sometimes it's a year or two or more wait for the trial. They do have to have tentative dates, but I wouldn't be surprised if it gets shifted and postponed for various reasons, of course. And let's hope he doesn't do the whole, incompetency hearing thing, the insanity plea and all that kind of stuff that these criminals usually do, which also delays the whole process. We shall see. Of course, we're keeping an eye on it, and when the trial happens and if it's televised, oh my word, we'll be here for it. As you know, I'm not good at trials. I don't know the attention span to sit there through trials, but for damn sure I'll be watching to see what happened after all this time. What on earth happened in this case? What are the details? What do we know? Of course, with the main focus being fighting for justice for Abby and Libby.
And started taking the car away, one of the cars away, not the one he'd been sitting in, but a car that the neighbors recognized as one that he routinely used. And they began a search inside the house and also in the yard using some sort of a device, perhaps like a metal detector or something like that, to search a flower bed and also an area around a shed. They did dig.
They're searching a flower bed, the area around the shed. I mean, that just reminds me of the Gabby Petito case. That's what we wanted them to search. And they did eventually go search, right? They went to search around that flower bed and the shed. So here as well, they searched around the flower bed using something like a metal detector and around the shed and in the shed. Oh my word. I wonder what they found in that shed. I have a suspicion it was horrifying.
Around the shed, some small areas. They took a lot of photos in the shed. The neighbors also watched through binoculars as officers came out of the house carrying several.
I think I would be one of those neighbors. Neighborhood watch all the way, binoculars out. Wouldn't you, true crimers? Wouldn't you, if you were standing there and you know that in such a small community, after 5 years and 8 months, they've caught Bridge Guy? Oh my word, and you're a neighbor? You're there on the street, you could literally, from your house, I'd probably get on the roof and be like, damn, what are they looking at? Get those drones out. I don't know if you're allowed to, but you know what I mean? I'd definitely be one of those neighbors with the binoculars out.
Bundles of cloth, dark cloth, perhaps clothing, a Macy's shopping bag, a shoebox, and a stack of books, small books.
Dark cloth. And Barbara said 2 pieces of dark cloth. I wonder if it would be, for example, the jacket that Abby was wearing. I don't know what the other item could be, but we know that 2 articles of clothing were missing from one victim. I wonder if this was found somewhere in the shed or, buried in the flower bed or around the shed. Oh, my word. I'm pretty sure they would have found hard drives, USB drives, all the stuff with stuff on. I'm pretty sure he would be into the same kind of activities as Kegan Kline and his dad and that whole ring of people. Wow. And of course, the police have said they're keeping all options open. They're not ruling anyone out. They're not saying if someone was or was not involved. I know that now we know, let's say it like this. Now we know that Ron Logan is not Bridge Guy. I know that people still have their major suspicions about Ron Logan. And to that, I must say, either this guy, if he was covered in, again, trigger warning, sorry for saying graphic things, but it is, I want to just say it in a true crime context. If this killer was covered in blood, because that's what the search warrant at Ron Logan's property said, that based on the victim's injuries, blood would have been on the person or the clothing, right? How did he get cleaned up and where? You know what I mean? I just worry sometimes that he went into Ron Logan's house, whether Ron Logan knew or not, or was out at the time or not, to clean up or something like that. I wonder if there's any connection to Ron Logan at all, because to choose to go onto Ron Logan's property, is that for revenge against Ron Logan, or is Ron Logan a friend and did he know about this? Is he part of the same sort of activity ring. I don't think so, because they took so much evidence from his home and he wasn't arrested for anything related to the Delphi murders. But I know that many people, I think including Barbara McDonald, still suspect Ron Logan. So let's see if there's any connection. Of course, as I said, Doug Carter himself said Ron Logan has not been ruled out, and they're still looking into everyone and everything and every tip. So keep the tips coming if you do have any tips, if you are from the area.
Wow. And at this point, we don't know what any of that means for the investigation. That is something that I'm sure investigators have spent the last several weeks looking for, whatever evidence perhaps led them to today. And the neighbors said that they had known him for several years, and he was basically, there was nothing special about him. He lived a quiet life with his wife and didn't have loud parties, didn't have a lot of people over. They spoke to them on occasion, but not often, and they're quite unnerved by these developments.
Yeah,
Susan?
that is.
Imagine it. Just like quiet neighbors, they're just not partying much, not socializing much. And then to find out that bridge guy lived on your street must be so shocking. Never mind in the community. That the families have had contact with this man. That Anna, Abby's mom, may have been frequenting the same bar as this guy and has sometimes spoken to him. Can you imagine the hindsight in the community now of all the times that the whole community interacted with this man? It must be so, so shocking. I'm going to link this entire clip in the pinned comments below, but let's check out little portions of this interview with Doug Carter and WTHR.
About what brought you to Mr. Allen?
No, I can't.
Can you talk about if he's related to Kevin Klein in any way?
Talk about any of the facts associated with the case.
Can't talk about any of the facts associated with the case. Interesting. I still wonder, is there a connection with the Kleins? Did Kevin Klein snitch? Which would be a good thing then. Thank goodness then he did. If he was able to lead the police to this man based on what he knows, damn. I mean, Kevin Klein is by no means a good person. He has so many counts of CP charges that he's facing. Not a good person, but at least if he could lead police to this man, that would be amazing. So Doug Carter says I can't speak about the facts related to this case. So that's interesting.
Emily, I can't.
The Patties confirmed to us that at one point Mr. Allen processed some photos for them at the local CVS and didn't make them pay for them. They there was a rumor out there, and they said, "Yep, that happened." Did you know that happened?
I didn't.
Oh man, I'm sure he didn't know that happened, because this is now in hindsight, seeing the face of the man who is Bridge Guy. Oh my word.
You always said, I mean, gosh, in every press conference when you brought up the video and the audio, and you addressed the killer several times and said, if you're here, do we know if he was ever in any of those rooms when you talked? Are you going back and looking at video or trying to see?
We're going to do everything we can possibly do.
So when he said to the killer who may be in this room, he might not have been in that room. I wonder if he was. He was pretty close, though. Pretty close location-wise to wherever the press conferences were held throughout the years. Okay, let's see how confident Doug Carter is that this is the guy.
Are you confident this is your guy?
The judge signed the probable cause affidavit for the arrest of Richard Allen for 2 counts of murder. Yes.
Do you think there are other people involved?
I'm not going to go there.
There's still speculation out there that investigators should still continue to look, even though he's passed away, at Ron Logan, where the bodies were found.
We're going to keep doing what we've done until there's nothing left for us to do. We're going to keep doing it.
I was looking back at my old notes from I have notebooks for 5.5 years.
Love the notebooks. Love it.
So I was reading back on the time when you guys searched Mr. Logan's property, and Kim Riley, was it Kim's? And he was saying it was because some things didn't add up. Are we still looking at Mr. Logan as possibly
involved?
involved?
At everything and all of it. We're looking at all of it. We said when this happened we were going to start all over.
So you never cleared him, Mr. Logan?
We haven't cleared anybody.
Nobody's been cleared, so not even Ron Logan. So I wonder what this investigation and the upcoming trial and everything will still reveal. As we know, this is now phase 2. I mean, phase 1 was finding bridge guy, finding the guy who supposedly murdered Abby and Libby. Of course, he is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So that was step one, really. And now we get to the next step or phase of the investigation, which would be the trial, prosecution, and all that. And then figuring out if there's other people involved. Are there any connections, and how will those connections then be held accountable? What will their charges be? Will they not? Is this just one guy who fantasized about this for years and then executed the plan? Also, how was he able to then, for 5 years and 8 months, not do anything else? Or did he do anything else? I would assume with a profile like someone like him, there would be, digital evidence, a couple accounts of SA, I would assume. And we saw that he was rumored to have struggled with alcoholism. So in those stages of his life, what did he do in those states? What did he get up to? It's going to be very interesting. Of course, I don't want to make this episode too long. I just wanted to bring you some of the new details and updates and things like that, especially what they dug up in the backyard of Mr. Richard M. Allen. And we are yet to find out more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.